your film needs to be the length it needs to be. So whether that be 25, 30, 15, 10, 8, whatever it needs to be. And that is all down to, again, comes to the screenplay. Like, are there parts of the film where it's repeating itself and it's not adding to the story? So it doesn't need to be in there. You know, a good length is one which tells the story with enough depth and enough rigor as possible.
Welcome back to another episode of the Rough Cut Club. I am your host, Joey Nicotra, here in the studio today with my business partner, the one they call Mr. Shane Reitzammer. Shane, how are you doing today, dog?
Good, man. Good. I like the intro. I didn't know where you're going with it at first. You cut your eyes over it. I got a little nervous, but you know, we're back on track. I'm happy. We're here.
Love it, man. Well, happy to have you in the studio today, along with a very special guest. Today's guest is a author, consultant, film festival strategist.
Ooh.
They call her the Film Festival Doctor. It's got a ring to it. I like that. I like that branding. Specializing in creating holistic film festival strategies to get your film seen by audiences around the globe. Welcoming to the show our latest Rough Cut Club VIP member and one of Dallas's own, Miss Rebekah Smith. Rebekah, welcome to the show.
Thank you. That was that was the best intro ever
I
ever had.
love it. I love it. Well,
Dallas's own.
Dallas's own. Well, obviously an international figure in the studio today, traveling all the way in to the lovely city of Dallas, Texas, where we call home. And so I gotta dive into that eventually and hear how you even got here initially. But thank you so much for joining us in the studio today. As you know, creatives ourselves who have been in the film festival circuit, I'm excited to jump in because what you do is applicable to basically any filmmaker ever who wants to get their film seen, to get it in front of audiences. And at the end of the day, when we make films, we want them to be seen and experienced, and you help people do that. And I love that. And so I'm excited to dive into what you do and a little bit about how you do it.
Yep.
But before we get there, if you could just kick us off with a little bit of an intro on who you are, maybe how you got to Dallas, and kind of what you do.
Yes, so I am a film festival consultant, and I help people get their films into festivals around the world. People tend to come to me with the problem that being, I've made a film, what do I do with it? How do I get it seen? Which festival should I submit to? How do I strategize? And I solve those problems by doing that for them. And I got into this all by accident, as is probably the best way, isn't it, to get into things without planning. So I was doing my PhD in Wales, UK, and I didn't think it was going to be like my life purpose. I was doing this I needed to, but I didn't feel like I was supposed to be doing this forever. Then I got asked to co-produce a film festival during the time I was there because they said, oh, we need some help. And I said, why not? It's something to do because it's getting out of the house. It's a very solitary thing doing a PhD. And then that hobby, I realized, was my life's purpose, and what I should be doing is working in the world of film festivals. Then I asked the filmmakers at the festival what they liked and disliked about film festivals, and they all said, well, we love film festivals, but we don't know how to get our films into festivals. There's nobody to really turn to. This is back in 2009. And I was like, oh, well, let's look on Google and see if there's anybody does what this kind of job is that people need. And then Google was giving us not really much results, and obviously didn't use social media in the same way as you do now. So I thought, right, I'm going to set this up. I'm going to become a film festival strategist. I'm going to call it the Film Festival Doctor because I am going to be a doctor, and I work in the film festival world, and I'm a female. So let's put that out there.
Let's go. I love that.
Yes.
I love that.
Incredible. So you were in Wales.
Yeah.
And then what brought you to Dallas?
So Dallas, I knew Dallas really well because I was traveling to the US quite a lot from the UK to LA, New York, and also I was doing a lot of stuff in Dallas with Dallas Film Festival, and I had clients there, so I was there quite a bit, and also in other parts of Texas. And I was going to move to LA, so when I got my business up and running, I wasn't able to grow it in Wales. Wales is a very small part of the UK. It's a different country, but there's no film industry there. So then I moved to London. Obviously, London is where the hub of the UK film scene is. And then it was getting very established. I wanted to grow it further by going to the US. And I was there a lot in the US at festivals and getting it known and having a lot of clients in US and UK. And then I wanted to move there, and I thought I better move to LA, but it didn't work out because I had an immigration issue, and I had a very bad time at LAX airport. It was really bad. I couldn't live in LA after that. And then I thought, well, I feel kind of safer to a degree in Dallas, even though it's a different kind of state. But I knew it, and I thought, well, if I can do my move now because I got the immigration issue cleared. And then I was able to move to the US. So I thought, well, I know Dallas, so I feel like I can just start up in here and see how I get on. And I haven't wanted to leave Dallas since then. So I'm now here.
All right. So you're saying you like Dallas.
Yeah.
It sounds like you settled here and you go, okay, I like it.
Yeah, it's very different to LA, very different to New York, obviously. And the film scene's really growing now because it's had a lot of changes. So it's all for the best.
Dallas is the greatest country on
earth.
So we like to say. Well, that's amazing. Well, we're happy that you've made it all the way here. Now that you're here, your business is up and running and growing. Walk me through what a typical day in the life looks like for you.
So when I get up, there is a ton of emails to read through because obviously I'm working with different countries because I have my team in the UK, has me here, and then obviously they work in the mornings, which is when I'm asleep. So there's a lot to get through, and then the mornings they're quite fun emails and they're quite exciting messages. So it will be festival invites coming in for clients, news of awards won, news of nominations, new client leads. News about something happening in the film festival world that we've not known about yet. There's some new information, new patterns, new trends. Variety newsletter, Screen Daily comes in. So there's a lot of stuff to process for the whole day. And then that keeps going up until, say, about 5 p.m. CST.
So really a big piece of it is just being up on the current state of the market news.
Yeah.
And so that you have like that, current insight knowledge as to what's working, what's not, what's happening, the activity, the demand. And it's really like you are just dedicated to studying the current most up-to-date news and what's working best, right?
Yeah. So obviously the headlines like, the box office numbers is all good, but my focus goes straight to film festivals, looking at the patterns and looking at, for example, like a new festival director might have come on board to another festival, could be this, that, and the other changing and this downsizing or this new kind of strand in a festival or somebody having a showcase of their work at a festival. You think, oh, how do they get there? So I like to look back at the patterns because I know it, because festivals are very fluid and things change on a daily basis. And obviously when festivals grow, we then look at what films of ours are getting into that festival and which ones aren't and what their new trends are. So there's quite a lot to keep on top of. It is a full-time thing. And my staff do a good job because I look at it I'm the one that's quite on it, but they too are noticing the trends and they always get back to me on things. And it's really, really good in the mornings having that brainstorm.
Oh, wow. There's so many festivals too. Like, we've recently, done some short films and put them in film festivals and, a documentary or a mini doc. And we're just like, when you go to it is overwhelming, So I was excited when we got you on the show because I think hearing some of that inside knowledge and just, some of those tips, because I think for filmmakers, you want your film, like your clients have said, you want your film seen, but sometimes we don't know as artists, or even as business people, we go, well, okay, we made it. How do we get it seen now, right? And what is the value in which festivals should we be focusing on of the thousands of festivals that are out there? And so, can you tell me a little bit about like what is the value that you see the most for filmmakers to enter into festivals? What is the value that they get by entering into festivals and the right festivals, right? Because I'm sure there's probably good festivals to get into, and there's ones that you're like, maybe I'd skip, right?
Yeah.
So what would you say the overall value for filmmakers are?
Just a couple of things to that value. So first of all is definitely the exposure, getting it seen theatrically, getting it seen on a theater screen, getting it seen by an audience, getting it seen in a way that can be appreciated for its whole value, cinematically. Networking, because obviously from that comes other filmmakers to connect with who could be local or could be other parts of the US or anywhere else in the world. So you can have an international or national directory of contacts. Also, what's good is prizes. Some of those prizes are very valuable because if it's, say, for example, a Oscar qualifying film festival, they do have awards which can help you submit to the Oscars. And also, as well, finally, I would say is having having feedback on your film from a different point of view. So having it from an audience, but also having it from filmmakers who are like-minded people. So getting different opinions can actually help grow your confidence.
I think that's one of my favorite things that I've heard because, a lot of times it's easy to look at the laurels that happen on a film and go, okay, I've got my laurels and whatnot. But so often the feedback is what's going to help you grow on the craft side of things so much to make a better final product. And you're getting, most people that attend film festivals are maybe not experts, quote unquote, but they're probably more interested and can give more refined critique on a film than maybe you're getting from some different peer feedback, because this is kind of unbiased to you, just purely auditing the film. And then now you're able to get, some raw feedback from maybe people that are outside your sphere of influence. And I love that component of what you just said.
Yes. And also when we come on board and start working on a film, we're obviously looking at it from the point of view of film festival programmers, and they watch films very differently to how, say, the UPS driver and when mum and dad would watch it. And also we don't have an emotional attachment. And what's an important thing to do for a filmmaker is when they have finished the film, the edit and all that kind of stuff, the whole thing's finished, is detaching emotionally, because it's now become a product. And that product will be viewed very differently by sales agents, distribution companies, film festivals, audiences. So it's very, very different. And it's important to be, able to take that kind of sort of critique, because it's there to help you. And maybe if some parts are lacking in others, then it could be a good way to then look at other ways you could develop your next film. It's there for feedback. It's crucial. There's no failure, only feedback. And festivals give you the opportunity. It can be quite, maybe it's a bit brutal sometimes, but that's part of the process.
So true. I remember my very first festival I went to. I was, with a producer, and I think I was the editor, and I made the DP on it, and I had cut the trailer teaser, and it was a teaser, kind of competition thing, and I think we ended up getting like second or something in it. And so that was great. I was like, oh, again, the laurels. You're like, yes, I'm validation. But one of the judges, they were giving us feedback, and he was like, yeah, storytelling is good, but the music was a bit much, a little overdone here, and I was just like, ow, like what? Like, and that actually drove me to change and analyze and go, let me watch this again. What is he talking about? Why is he saying the music was too much? And it's, it's a relative thing to some extent of likes and dislikes, but it made me hone my craft more from the feedback.
Yeah.
Right? The laurel was like, cool, we did something good. We almost got first. We weren't the best, but we were close. But it was that painful thing of like, yeah, music was, your volume level and the choice, and it was overdone a little bit. And you go, well, do I value your opinion? And then you go and you watch it like 10 times on the way home, and you're like, what did I do wrong? How can I get better? And so, I love that one too. Like you said, it's probably the most valuable thing that I've gotten from film festivals. I love the networking piece that you mentioned too.
Yeah.
I think that's so valuable. The international side as well. Like, I think, I met some people from like Germany at a film festival recently. I've met people locally that's just up in Oklahoma, and they're like, hey, we should, how do we do what you're doing, or how can we get together and do something together? Yeah. And man, those are, all four of those are great, but I'll have to say the feedback, painful, but the best part of
See, exactly. And
Yeah.
it's funny you say about sound, because I do find that a lot of the time, problems that especially short films have is a bad sound mix. And it needs to be, the Foley needs to be changed, or it needs to be tweaked or done again, or a bit rough or whatever. It's a thing that's just quite common. It's something that's hard to do. And sometimes you need that extra feedback to like, the levels are wrong. They go, what's your headphones? I'm like, no, the levels are wrong. Because it's wonky. It just needs to be, done properly. Otherwise, sometimes you can get like tinny sound as well. And it's because it's a very precise thing with sound. So it's a good thing you mentioned that, because it is a very common thing. But it can be like at the time people say that, you're like, well, I don't think so. And you're like, actually, it is an issue here.
Yeah.
I didn't recognize it at first.
Right. You get so close to your art. Sometimes you go, this is amazing. And the director says it's amazing. The producer says it's amazing. And these judges say it's amazing.
Yeah.
But one person calls something out. And so you have to analyze it. And it makes you get better, And yeah, you have to weigh the validation of their expertise and what it is, but I think that's what sharpens you as an artist. You know,
Yeah.
it's the pain. You know, growth is pain.
So part of your process actually starts in the consultation
Yeah.
phase. And so, walk me through what that looks like. Like if I'm bringing you a film and I'm like, this is my baby, I want to see it do well, walk me through what a consultation looks like with the film festival doctor.
Yeah. So we can begin consulting with you when the film is, picture lock or almost completed or fully finished or whatever it's going to be. So any stage. Also, rough cut too can be at some point, but as long as we have, we can look at the film and give you an assessment on it and the story is fine. So how it starts is we then review the film, me and my colleague, and then we give feedback from that festival programmer's perspective, and we break down the feedback from the point of view of narrative, and the concept, characters, acting, production quality, and the structure. And then all of that feedback then creates the best approach to take and what types of festivals to submit to and what level and tier. So, for example, say it's a female-directed LGBTQ horror short film. The question we have to ask is, can this break out of that niche, those niches, women's festivals and LGBT and horror? Can it go to more general festivals that aren't specific to those niches? Does the story stand out? Does the acting stand out? Is it the right length? Does it do something that's different? Is it talking about showing change? All those kind of things to think about when we're watching it. If it can, then we can then present different, more approaches to bring in and different layers to the strategy. But we're very blunt in the feedback. I was going to say blunt, but we're constructive and blunt because you have to be, because it's like, there's some parts where in some films you just need to say, look, the acting is not good here. You need to cut around it, or you don't need that character. What are they adding to the story? With a short film, things have to happen quickly to get to the narrative quickly, get to the point, get to the action quickly. And with a feature, you've got to do a similar thing. So it's very precise feedback. And some people don't always like that. But some people are very open and go, okay, well, we're too close to it. So, this gives us really good insight. I had a filmmaker reach out to me a few months ago, and he said, I want to submit to Sundance, all the biggies. I said, look, it's not for Sundance and the big festivals, smaller ones and women's festivals, but it's just not there and it's far too long. And then he said, okay, I'm going to pass. I was like, all right. And then today he came back and he said, I apologize for the brutal email I sent. But since we read your feedback again, we've now re-edited it to 90 minutes from 25, and we feel it's much better and different scenes. So could you review and if you want to work with us? And I said, okay, well, definitely give it a go. And I'm glad that you've done that, because that's what I want to hear, is that you took on the feedback. I've now made a film that even you say is now better. So now you can see when the emotions are put us up.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Gosh, I want her to I'm like, you
know.
need to watch some of our films.
I know,
I'm kind of scared. Yeah, this is great.
Send it to her, but
yeah. So how many films, if you could just guesstimate, have you seen, like short films and feature films? Because I imagine you've had to watch hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get probably each day a short film comes in per day to review.
Wow.
And then maybe one feature during that week. Features aren't as common as shorts, because obviously shorts are a different kind of product and can be made slightly more, maybe more quickly. Obviously, different kind of budget things, so it varies. There's always a short film around.
Right.
Even during the pandemic, people said, oh my God, have you had no films come in? I said, I've had more, because, people can finish off what they started, or they make them during the pandemic and whatever.
Yeah.
So we get quite a few. And sometimes they can be very similar, like, the kitchen sink drama. Or it can be, like a sci-fi that can be either well executed or not well executed. They all vary, but they're all interesting because it helps me learn and just like to see what people want to do and what their intentions are. A lot of films can have the heart in the right place, and meanwhile, or some of them we're new, we need help, and some of them, not quite sure what festivals are and what to do. But it's important as well when I say to the prospective client, I said, okay, so you want to get into festivals, what else do you want to achieve? What are your goals? Because the goals will structure things. And we can work together. So, for example, some are very specific and say, look, this is just for the top tier. I want to get into Oscar, BAFTA, BIFA qualified festivals. I don't want to get into any others because we want to get on the high level. But if the film can't do that for them, then, do they want to pursue it? Because if it's not going to get in, then it has to do different festivals. Do they want to do that? So it's important to really know what you want at the same time when you send me the film.
So good. So in order to make this real too for our listeners, I want to give them some tangible advice almost from your perspective on when someone's setting out to make a short film. We'll just call them short films right now and keep features aside. What is some tangible takeaways that you would advise them to do to basically set their short film up for success in the film festival circuit space?
Yeah. So first and foremost, the story needs to be interesting and different and telling us something from a different point of view, or telling us something we've not seen before and giving like a fresh take on it. So if it's going to be full of cliches, it's going to be limited what it can do. If it's predictable, same old, or if the festival program can guess the ending, it's not going to go very far. So it needs to be something fresh and something different and well written. So it all starts with the script. So I will always advise people to definitely, at the screenplay stage, to make sure they've had plenty of coverage, plenty of feedback on it, and then come to me from the point of view of festivals and how far it could go and what the potential is on paper. And then obviously getting together a very good cast and crew is crucial. I've had films have very good scripts, but then they miscast people, it doesn't quite work out. Or it's people that haven't got good sound. The sound again comes in, and then obviously need a good DP, these kind of things. Also a good editor as well, because sometimes we've had for some reason we had a film come in, then we read it at script stage and it was 15 pages, but this film was 30 minutes. So we had things like that happen, which is quite odd. That would just need a re-edit. So it's really important that you kill your darlings, you get the screenplay at the right place where it needs to be, you hire the right cast and crew, and you also hire a really good festival strategist at the end.
Right.
That's one thing I'm going to say. But it all starts with the screenplay. And also what I would suggest as well in that process, when you're in the process getting feedback and all that kind of thing, is to watch other short films that go to festivals. Look at films that win festivals. What are their stories? What are the common themes that you're seeing? For example, there's a short film that I represent, which is about change in black people's rights in South Africa. And that's really interesting because it's not really been done before. And also they've done it in a way where it's accessible to people outside of South Africa. So, think about who the audience is, who you're trying to target, what is the whole point of it. You're going to make this film for a reason. So what is the point behind it? If it's just for the showreel, that's different. A real good short film is one that makes an impact on what you remember and lasts with you. If it's not going to make that impact, then it's not going to be a memorable short film and won't get very far for people.
Mic drop. That's
Seriously.
a
That was
huge
a soundbite.
value add statement right there. I love that. I'm like, I want to go back and look at some of my scripts and
Right.
write some new scripts. You're inspiring us right now. This is great.
So I'm curious, as somebody who, is constantly analyzing and critiquing films, have you made any films yourself or ever tried to, do the screenplay process and do the whole shebang and then submit your own work to a festival yourself?
So I have produced a short film that was a genre film, and I didn't like the producing side of things. I preferred to produce the film festival, but I'm proud of it. It came out well. But I was like, no, I'm more about the festivals. I like getting the film seen and out there and distributed than actually making it. And we had a bit of an issue with that film because it was my first film I produced, and then the other producer with me stole half the money. So I was like, this isn't much fun.
Oh, no. Yeah.
So I'm going to not skip on this next one. But, it was quite a learning curve, but I learned a lot from it. It was good. And I do have a few treatments that I wrote for some short features. Sorry, some short narrative films. So I've got those in the pipeline, but it's the time because my job is very time consuming. And I have a producer that works with me, and she's really good, and she, certainly gets them out there. But my focus is always about getting the films on the circuit and an award season. So.
This is a little bit off topic, but it's just such a fascinating subject that I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't have as much competition in your field as maybe some other things. I mean, correct. I mean, I'm totally ignorant, but I feel like there's not that many people that, you have competition with. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, there's only a few of us that do this.
Yeah.
It's definitely not like, we're not as common as sales agents and producers. There's not many of us that do it because it is a full-time thing. It's very specific and it's very much a very specialized niche.
Right.
And it's a very different way of distributing a film because it's obviously festivals a different way to like mainstream distribution.
Right.
So yeah, so I'm the only one that does this in Dallas. So
Yeah, there you go.
I love that. And so I kind of want to even just hear, you told me like you kind of got the opportunity to produce a festival and got thrown into that world. But this is such a fascinating like passion to really pursue. And I'm curious, like in your own words, where do you feel like the passion to see other people's films win really comes from and like continues to drive you?
Yeah, I think it's because at the festival, when I first started producing it, it's a very, like communal kind of environment. Everyone's in the same boat. Everyone, appreciates each other's work. They give people good feedback. They help and support and nurture. It's a nice community and environment. And then seeing the people that you get to know at a festival win an award, it's amazing. And like when I'm working with a client, and get to know them and what their goals are and how they are, and then seeing them win is fantastic. And I love it. I'm excited every weekend when there's a festival. We're like, oh, we win. And when we do, we're like, oh my God, it got noticed and, it got appreciated. For the story that it tells and the people that it tells the story about, whatever reasons. So I think it comes from probably the beginning of my career working at festivals, just seeing people like, really nice people with their film and wanting to get it seen and succeed, and then just seeing that for my clients do the same. So that's really lovely. There's a couple of clients who I work with who are like, like really sweet and new, and then seeing them at their first festival, it's really nice because they're like, oh, we had such a good time, like we did a Q&A, and I've done that before. They were like, wow, we had to talk about the film. It was really intimidating at one point, but they're like, oh, actually, now it's finding it a lot of fun. Actually, there was at the Fort Worth Film Festival, the Lone Star Film Festival, there was a guy who I met there, and he is a student. He had a student film there. It was a couple of years ago. And he became like the star of the festival because he came out of his shell. He was quite nervous at first, and he was like the funniest person. So we just like, it's a festival vibe, because you're starting to like relax and chill and then get in the mode of everything. And then, it's hilarious. And he'd never been as far as Dallas and Fort Worth. And now he's like, I'm going to go to LA. I'm like, oh yes, it's a vortex in LA. There's a new world altogether over there.
Yeah.
So it's really sweet that festivals gave him confidence, in presenting his film. So it's wonderful.
Oh, that's great.
That's so cool. Yeah, Shane always says, and you could probably clean it up better than me, but like your success fuels your passion to create.
Yeah.
I think
it's my tagline. Yeah.
I think that's kind of, like seeing other people win fuels you and drives you to continue helping other people, and I think that's super cool and admirable.
Yeah.
So when somebody brings a film to you that isn't perfect for a film festival, and whether that it's too genre or not genre specific enough, or there's problems with it, how do you handle those sort of scenarios? Because you're dealing with people's you're dealing with delicate artists, right? Yeah. We're all vulnerable and delicate and want to be very protective of our stuff that we're showing you. How do you deal with some of those clients they bring you a product that's harder to work with in the festival space?
So we're honest, and then we give it very kind of good feedback in terms of giving them like the positives, because every film will have some kind of challenges, no matter how good it is or whatever problems it's got. There's always going to be something. So we, first of all begin with the strengths. Then when we go talk about the weaknesses, we do it in a way where it's very well worded. I mean, my other colleague that works with me, Sheila, she's brilliant, but she's brutal. And like, I have to like reword some of the things because it's going to be like, it's just such things like, it just does not need that. It really doesn't need this. And like, what's that about? I'm just like, all right, let's just make it more caring language. Then I explain like the problems, and then I talk about, very clearly what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. And then they can say, okay, I can see what you mean now because we didn't notice that, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, there's a film which has a good lead performance, but the supporting cast bring it down because it's not as strong. So we say, the lead is fantastic, and I love the diversity of the character, and give all the good points, and say, but unfortunately the supporting cast are not as strong, and it does bring it down a bit. So different festivals, but people will still recognize the lead and how good he is at other festivals of a smaller tier. So it's not all lost, so we give that, that explanation. Some say be really honest. And then when we do get honest, they can be like, oh, don't mince your words, do you? Like, well, you asked for honesty. Yeah. But then I just like to come in like with a gentle approach, and if they take it, fine, and that's good. If they get argumentative, then I'll have to stand my ground a bit. And then, they then can maybe see it at a later date when they've had time to detach. So when I send the feedback, I always say, take time to read, process, and digest, and then think of your questions, then come back. And then they're like, that helped a lot. I had to take a day out from it. It was like I said, it was a bitter pill to swallow. And like, okay. And then they said, oh, no, we see it differently because we've just been so immersed in it, we don't know what we're making.
It's so true. And I think the going back to my example, right?
Yeah.
And so I appreciate the clarity. I love communication. And we have a production company. We've got over like 30 plus contractors. We've got 11 staffers, and there's a lot of comms going back and forth on the daily. And you have to be very clear, concise, and direct.
Yeah.
Right? Or you're going to fall apart at the speed that we're moving at these days. And so going back to my example, it was like, well, the music, it was a bit much. And I'm like, what does that mean? And so like, how you laid that out about, well, the supporting actor, or this actor was good because X, Y, and Z, supporting cast, maybe X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
That really helps us. It does hurt. It's always, but it's good, and we want to process that.
Yeah.
And so one of my things now too is, was taught from a friend, is like 48 hours to process, at least 24. Sometimes you only have 24 to, but marinate on it and then come back with that response. So I love that you even give them a window of time, like read this, digest it, because it is hard. Like Joey said, I always talk about our artists as a bunch of kittens we like to keep in a safe space, right? And let them play and explore and create something beautiful together. If you could only have, I'm jumping in here because I feel like if you could, this is, theoretical, but if you could only have either a great story or great cinematography, what would be your suggestion? Like if you had to only pick one of those for a festival entry.
I want to throw in a great cast too.
Oh, that's good. So 3. It's kind of the triangle. Have you ever heard of like, good, fast, cheap, right? So we're going to say cast, good cast, great cinematography, or a great story.
Pick 2.
Pick 2.
Probably takes 2 to actually get an award, right? Yeah.
Well, first and foremost would be the great story. That's what can win awards when it might not be the strongest performances or DP, like film, or not the best cinematography. So definitely the story first and foremost, followed by the cast. Because they could then sometimes bring that story another level with the performances if they're very strong. I know that the third one is going to be like cinematography, but the worst thing you want is a film that looks stunning but has not very good story or acting. So but that means it might win best cinematography awards, but then it wouldn't win anything for story or the film or anything else. Yeah,
that's good. And like you said it earlier, I think it's like it's great for your demo reel, but it's not going any further than that, other than painting some pretty pictures. So. Yeah. That's great insight.
There's a little thing that me and a friend of mine who programs a festival in Germany, we have this little saying that when we went to festivals in London, he used to come to London and look at, some films doing the London festival scene. And then we have this little thing we call it a throwaway short film. And then he said, well, if it's a throwaway short film, it's absolutely pointless to forget all about it when it's finished, then it's not a good film. If a film that we remember and we keep talking about, it's a really good film. So that was interesting. So even though it might be a film at first you think, do I like it? But then we keep talking about it, and there's something good about it that's making us talk about this all the time. If we can't remember what the film was about, and it's like, I think was memorable in any images or the acting or anything like that, or the soundtrack, then it's not going to have much longevity or have a lasting impact on us.
That's so good, too. And I think that does cross into cinematography or even sound design. You touched on that. Because I've walked out of a film festival before and go, man, I don't really know exactly what that story was about, but wow, like that cinematography was next level. Some of those sequencing and the way they made me feel by putting that image. Like there's a story that some artist is trying to tell me with the sequencing in the cinematography, right? And so I love that because I think that can, even sound design, sometimes you walk out and go, oh, that was not very pretty, but the sound design or the story, like we've seen that so many times. I've been to film festivals and I go, oh man, they're showing this on the big screen, you know, and I'm not trying to be rude, but I'm just like, oh man, but I understand everybody starts somewhere, but then I watch it and I go, that story, I go home and talk about that story with my friends, with my wife, with my family, and I go, well, that's memorable, right? So I think that nails it. It's got to be
Yes.
memorable. And I think story is one of the things that can be memorable
Yeah.
the
and
most.
and the execution obviously is a key thing there. And what festivals want to see is an execution that is strong, doesn't hold back, or likes to doesn't like in terms of like hold back the vision. It actually goes really like out there, the director, and doesn't want to be like saying he shouldn't do this or the other. He just does it, or him or her does it. Is the key thing there. Execution's a big thing.
Love it.
Do you feel like there has been a short film? I'll get into feature stuff afterwards because I know you're a big Tarantino fan.
Yeah.
We'll get into Tarantino before the episode's up. But is there a short film that you feel like has really made a big impact on you? Like it was the exact opposite of a throwaway film, where it was like, man, this was one of the better shorts that I've seen, and like what were some things from that would be good takeaways in terms of why it made an impact on you?
Yeah. There's one that I worked on last year called Rest, and it was shot in New York by a very good director and his producing partner and actress. And it focuses on this woman who's going to go to court 'cause she's had another DUI. And it's the editing that is so fascinating in her performance. The two of them work so well. So it cuts back and forth to certain scenes like flashbacks of when she was trying to recover from alcoholism and then to where she is now. And you really care about the character through the way it's been structured and also through the edit and how she is to camera. You see her face and it's just a face that you feel so much sympathy for, but you don't forget the image. You don't forget her face or the images. You remember them much long afterwards, and it did some really good festivals. And it's because it has that kind of brilliance about it, which is through very creative editing and a performance that is very deeply, deceptively complex on the surface. And the more you see it, the more you just like can't forget it. And that was really interesting, that film. And they were not sure about doing festivals or doing anything with it because they were worried about, like what people would think of it. I was like, it's going to do okay. And it did some good ones, and they said the same thing. It's unforgettable. You just don't forget what happens to the lead and the problems that she has through the sympathy you feel with that lead actress, 'cause she's really good. And she has now, that actress does have from that film an acting agent. So that helps a lot. Another one which also like never unforgettable kind of film is also one based on performances called Hard Times. It's a new one from the UK. Just started to work on that one, but that is a film you can watch over and over, never get sick of it. But the reason why you don't get sick of it is because of the acting. Like, it's flawless acting. Like, there's no way to describe it, but it's flawless acting, and it's very London, very real. And the edit is like flawless because it flows. The sound design's perfect. Cinematography's great, and the screenplay has nailed it. There was a longer version that worked, but they had a 90-minute version that was just hit the nail on the head. And that was what did it. So yeah, I think a lot of it is down to the performances and how well crafted the editing is to make it, and also with the strong story to make it really like last.
Go ahead.
Okay. This is an observation that I have made recently just about filmmaking in general. And, as an artist, as a cinematographer myself, so much of the art that I create is outside of my control.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a really fascinating, just when I sit back and I think about all of the different cogs in the wheels that make a film come to life, I feel like the industry that we're in, there's so many variables that are outside of our control that make something come to life. And it's not even necessarily a question, but just something that I've been dwelling on recently. Like, we've talked about the story, the cast, the editing, the sound design, the cinematography. We can get into locations and makeup and special effects and all of the different things that make a movie, one that sticks out. And it's such a fascinating concept. And again, it's not even a question, but more so an observation that I've been making recently, is that so much of what makes the films that we work on special is the team of people and really, really assembling every single piece of the puzzle correctly. Because if you if you have everything except the story, it's not going to be good. If you have everything except the cast, it's not going to be good. And it's like you really need the magic of every single piece coming together to make something that's worth watching. And it's just you've kind of reiterated that thought for me this week, but it's just something I've been dwelling on, and I love just the reinforcement that you've brought to that.
Oh, thank you. No, it is. It's a big thing. It all starts on paper.
That's right. That's right. Were you going to jump in?
Oh, I was sitting here. I'm over here trying to get like the little tips, the quick tips. I'm like, okay, I'm hearing the time that you're saying about short films, right?
Yeah.
And so, is there anything for our? And I'm sure it's probably different for each fest, because I've seen festivals. Here's our limitation. Here's that. Have you seen certain run times for short films stand out and perform better? Is there any patterns that you see that seem to win more awards? Like, in the corporate commercial, it's like shorter is better. Shorter. I mean, we're going from, we do a lot of corporate commercial work, so it's like 30-second broadcast spots. Now we're talking like 3-second ads on,
Right.
TikTok and Instagram, right? But is there any time frame that you've seen really perform well, or does that not really matter and it's based on the story?
The golden rule is that the length of your film needs to be the length it needs to be. So whether that be 25, 30, 15, 10, 8, whatever it needs to be. And that is all down to, again, come to the screenplay. Like, are there parts of the film where it's repeating itself and it's not adding to the story? So it doesn't need to be in there. A good length is one which tells the story with enough depth and enough rigor as possible. So you'll find sometimes that a lot of people want to make a short film to be 15 minutes. I call it the magical 15 minutes. I think it was like 2013 this all started to happen. And people would say to me, oh, we're trying to get to 15 minutes. I'm like, why? So, well, that's the best length for festivals. Not necessarily. If your film needs to be longer, they're going to pick up on that. They're going to think, well, I need to have really more time there, to spend with this character or this, that, and the other. It goes by way too quickly just to try and put it into 15 minutes. It might need to be 17, 18, or 19, that kind of thing. So length is like, in terms of ideal length, it depends on the film. So people like to say things like make it as short as possible, but then people can make a mistake of like making it a shorter film when it needs to be and then get no festivals. Yeah. So you have to be ruthless, but also like be honest and think, not attach yourself to a number is what I say to clients of mine. I had a client today, for example, she said, it's 20 minutes. I'm like, okay, well, that might not be an issue. She said, what are the credits? So I went, credits for a short film, 1 and 2 minutes maximum. But if it ends up being 21, 22, then wouldn't worry too much about it. If it deserves to be that length, if it justifies the running time, then it'll get a spot at festivals. I mean, any film that's a longer short film is not going to be, it's going to be easy, not easy to program. It's going to have a few challenges ahead of it, but if it deserves that slot, it will get the right festivals, so it's okay not to stress about the length. When you're writing it, just write it. If it needs to be a longer short, then so be it. If it needs to be shorter, then it'll be shorter. But in terms of like, also with features, it's a similar thing. Like, normally a good length, I suppose, is like 90 minutes or 80 minutes, but then some might need to be a bit longer to contain the whole story. So it just really depends upon what you've got to say and how long that needs to be.
One of the things that you mentioned when I was doing my homework on you is that synopsis and bio are the most important pieces in submitting your film to a festival. Can you explain what you mean by that and why that is?
Yeah. So the synopsis needs to be succinct and to the point, not like, 10 paragraphs for 5 pages because people haven't got time to read that. It just needs to be very succinct. And in that synopsis, you need to bring out its unique selling points and why it's different. Say like another LGBT horror. What is it doing differently? Who stars in it? If it's any celebrities, is always a good thing. But it's got to give the emotional core of the film in that synopsis and keep it succinct and to the point. With a director's bio, that's also important, but that also needs to be succinct and to the point. It's to tell the journey, not like I was born in this hospital and I got, at 6 a.m. in the morning, or nothing like that. It just needs to get to the point and then tell the story from the beginning, like you began doing this and then you moved into that and now you're into filmmaking. Keep it to the point, drop in a few names of where you've studied or what festivals you've been in previously or people you've worked with, clients, whatever, that just shows that you're emerging filmmaker or established or new, whatever it might be, and keep that, 2 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs maximum. Director's statement is also important too, which is explains the why behind the film, why you wanted to make the film, and why it looks the way it does, and the vision behind it. So put the vision in words, and explain the importance of it and its relevance.
I think a lot of what you just said too just boils down to having crystal clear clarity in the film that you're making.
Yes.
And so many people have like this loose concept that they fight to bring to life and don't have the clarity in terms of all of the nuance that they want to bring to the film, or the messaging, or the tropes, or whatever. And I love that, you know, part of what just sets a film out, you know, on success is to have the proper GPS coordinates in the beginning, right? You can't, knowing exactly where you want to get to is going to help your film be successful. And so I love the clarity piece of that.
Yeah.
It's woven in there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sometimes a synopsis is if you haven't got to tell the whole story and like break it down, it just needs to be succinct and explain the story, and then leave with a cliffhanger, but just talk about its unique selling point, you know, why it's doing this differently to other films in that genre. The shorter the better with synopsis, you know, not like a sentence, just one paragraph that's poignant and powerful is good.
I was about to ask, but you just answered that, the log line, you know, because if you're pitching or you're selling a feature, you know, or anything, you need a one sheet, a log line, you know, and maybe a proof of life concept. And so you just answered that, though, the synopsis. It doesn't have to be a sentence. But how important this is helpful for us. You know, we've done some of the film festival circuit. We're trying to, I'm taking away some of the stuff that we're learning today, and I think we have to talk later too about future things. But we would create, you know, we do the synopsis, log line, director bio, and then we were cutting a trailer too for the short, because we were doing like Film Freeway, right? So we're entering there, and it has a spot for a trailer, so yeah, we'll use it. Plus, we want to be able to show, like, we know we can't show our short film publicly yet because it's got to do the festival circuit, but our trailer, we can, little 30-second or 1 minute, we can kind of show some of the work, right? Sneak peek of it. And so we would do that selfishly for our socials and for our company website, because it would take 6 months to a year to run through the festival circuit sometimes. Does the trailer, is that something that people, you recommend people do, is cut a little trailer from it as well? Does that add any value in the entry process? Like, what are some of the things, or is it really the synopsis, bio, and having a really great film?
So having a great film is the priority, first and foremost. But it is now compulsory for a short film to have a trailer. Back in the day, you'd get away with it, but now not so much, because festivals require the trailer for either their social media to put, advertise the film, or they use a little bit from your trailer into their main festival trailer to advertise the movie. And also they sometimes put it on their website too, to show winners, the trailer, or, the program, and they put your trailer on there, whatever. But also for yourself, having it on your social media is important as well. The, showing like, launching at this festival next week or whatever, it's on there. And I think in terms of length with a trailer for a short, like 30 seconds, 90 seconds maximum is enough. It's going to be much longer than that. For a feature, like some people do like 3 minutes, but 2.5 maximum is enough, that you can just do a lot in there. And also like really bring out, like, in terms of a teaser, like teasing the audience literally, like, this is what it's about, it's what's different, and then it's what we're going to happen kind of thing, like, what can you guess, that kind of stuff. But it's important, and also needs to be cut professionally. It's one of the things that, same with the poster, one of the things that festivals see when they see your project page, when you submit to them on, say, via Film Freeway, they'll see the poster and the trailer and then all this other stuff. The more professional, concise, and clear, the better. Then it certainly shows that they're dealing with professionals. And a strong poster that's not done on paintbrush or Canva, a professional poster, a professional trailer will certainly help it go far, and they can trust the filmmaker from seeing that. I speak to quite a few festival programmers about Film Freeway, about what they like and dislike about, the project pages. And a lot of them say, we read the synopsis first, and we think, where can we program this film? Like, okay, this could fit in our program about environment and wildlife, or we could fit in our program about women's cinema or women's issues or something. And then they think about what they can do with it, because sometimes they watch it and think this could probably fit quite well, but then sometimes they might look at it and go, okay, well, nothing much to hook in at this stage, but let's watch the film and see what happens, kind of thing. So it's important to have those assets available and professionally made to a high standard.
Oh, it's such a good insight on so many, all of that stuff. I want to like just, I'm going to go rewatch this clip and like take notes again. But big thing she said, they read the synopsis first.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's
Yeah.
huge. I'm going to tell on ourselves. Like, I feel like we really, limped by on our synopsis because we go, oh, we got a great trailer. We think our short film's great. Put it up there in synopsis, what does it matter, And so it's like one of those things that start, make sure that
Yeah.
is cohesive with the rest of it. That's great. Love it.
This is like it's a job, They're thinking of what they can do with it. How can they help the film? I was speaking with a programmer yesterday, and there's a feature film that I work on, a feature doc, that is very well made and very well produced and all that kind of good stuff. But it's very, very niche, as we say in the UK, not niche. I bring that like here.
Uh-huh.
And then I was saying to him, like, the filmmakers are really desperate for this festival, but I keep saying to him it's not going to work. And can you give me some more insight? And he was like, of course I will. He said it is a really good product. They spent money on it really well, but we just cannot do anything with it. No one's going to come and see this film. There's no audience for it. And I don't want to, them to get accepted and have nobody turn up in a big theater because that's going to make them angry. I was like, yeah. So, that to translate, not very well, but, it's giving that from the horse's mouth feedback, and like in the synopsis, we make it clear what it is and it either gets people excited or not.
So good.
Yep. That's great. So talk to me about where the love for Quentin Tarantino comes in, because you are a very outspoken fan of him and his work.
Yep.
Talk to me a little bit about why that is and kind of what first sparked that.
So the first film I saw when I was younger that I really loved was Pulp Fiction. I remember I had to I didn't see this in theater because I was too young, but I remember seeing it on, like Sky TV with Mum and Dad. And I loved the music in his films and how it matches the imagery, but also the dialogue. I loved his dialogue and how normal it was, and you could just hang out with his characters and they'd be funny, they'd be well shot, well edited. I just thought they were like really perfect films and funny. I could really laugh out loud at them all the time. I've seen Pulp Fiction countless times. Like, I know it word for word. Every time I did a long haul flight, it would be on the flight and I would watch it because I knew it inside out, and it'd be like, fun to watch. I just hang out with the characters. I like just how he brings his love for cinema to his films and lets the audience share that. And it's just stuff that, again, we talked about memorable images. There's scenes that you never forget, and powerful impact that they make and like long lasting on culture. I think his later work isn't as strong, I'll be honest. I wasn't the biggest fan of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I need to watch it again, or Django, but I like The Hard Eight, and everything before that is brilliant, 'cause obviously I think that's a point it makes there actually about editors, because obviously he lost his editor, Sally. She died of heat stroke, and then he got, other people on board that might be able to manage him, because he's quite strong, as you can tell in interviews, and I've read all his books, and he's read my PhD on him.
Wow.
Yeah, and he made me a
awesome.
thank you note, which is really sweet. But he's just strong, and he loves academia, so it's quite interesting. But yeah, so I just find him fascinating individual, but a great filmmaker who really loves film and his characters.
One of the things that he said that really was inspiring to me, and I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said, when I'm thinking about making a movie, I'm thinking about being in a theater and one person watching it and enjoying it, and that person being myself.
Yeah.
And he literally just makes movies that he wants to watch.
Exactly.
And I think that was one of the more like powerful mind shifts for me.
Yeah.
In terms of instead of trying to not, copy this and make my own version of this, it's like making a film that Joey wants to watch is what Joey should be doing, and that's what's going to make me a good filmmaker at the end of the day. And I thought that was one of the more powerful things that I've ever taken away from him.
Yeah. Yes.
And just how he approaches making films. So
yeah, and you feel like you can join in and hang out.
yeah,
I mean, I suppose it's love and hate. It's not everyone's cup of tea. But I've always found that I can really relate to his characters. And in my research, my PhD, when I did my study on I did a fan study on his films and how they responded to his films emotionally. And the thing that hooked them in is the dialogue the characters say. And his fan base are mainly men and women, surprise, surprise. But the men engage very differently and see him as a father figure than the women do. Women is much more, they like the female characters better, but they don't have as deep an attachment. And that attachment forms through dialogue. So it's interesting. Yeah.
Royale with cheese. Oh,
Yeah.
that's such a great. Tarantino dialogue. He's definitely a true auteur, and
100%.
When you say that too, because he makes stuff that reflects the things that he wants to watch, and everybody is so uniquely different. I think when you're comfortable in that spot and that skin, and you surround yourself with that team, and you do see a change in the films.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting to think about. You change out the editor, and then what have you gained, what have you lost, and what do you need to fix? And so,
I mean, there was a difference after she passed, and his films to the like Django wasn't the strongest, and you could tell because he was with a studio. I think it was Sony. But it was different editor that wasn't able, I don't think, to rein it in. And there's this, the scene where he plays himself as the Australian guy. He's pretty not the best. And she would have reined him in from that. And she in interviews, I read every single interview he's done up until about maybe 2000, and all for my research. And his editor would really be strong with him and like no, she would like really rein him in, and he'd listen eventually. But I think you need to know him in a different way to do that as an editor than working at Sony. Maybe it's different. But she was like, you tell the things she would say, like no, and she'd rein it in here, rein it in there, and she'd be like, no, you're not doing that, and then she'd listen. You know how to manage him. If you're scared of him, it's not going to work.
Yeah, it's those feedback circles. I think that's so important. I think one of the things in Cinema Story, we found that we work with all these freelancers as well, right? We have staffers and a big circle of freelancers, and one of the things that they value the most is, whoa, like Joey reviewed my filming and like my white balance, my framing, all of these things, and I'm getting notes. And they're sometimes painful, right? And Joey does a good job of, sugarcoating and layering it.
I'm getting lazier and lazier with the sugarcoating.
And but it's good. But you need to hear the truth, and you need to hear that iron sharpens iron. You got to kind of massage the artist and help form. And so maybe that was what was going on with Tarantino when you see that difference.
Yeah.
But we definitely see it even on a lower level scale, within our own company. And to be honest, when I used to still shoot, I would begrudgingly, show. So I used to review all of Joey's stuff. I found him early on in his career, and had some time to mentor him, and then he's surpassed. I don't film anymore, and he's, I don't know where the record button is, and he wrote the manual on the red camera, and so that's and so then if I shoot something, I'm like, all right, take a look, give me some notes. It's painful, but I want it still because it is that growth. And then I'm just going to give you some flowers here too, because I think being a film festival consultant is something that's very needed, right? It's a very unique feedback.
Yeah.
That like I'm over here asking all these questions. I'm already, well, what's the length? What's all this stuff? And having that feedback, that's good to hear those things, but actually watching or reading one of our scripts, you get that painful, feedback that you actually truly need to grow.
And it's
so,
about growth. That's what festivals are there for. And it's a very specific niche. It's very different. And festival programmers watch films differently to a sales agent. They'll be looking at how they can sell it, and a distribution company. And PR marketing is very different. If it's going to be a commercial PR release or it's going to be a festival film, it's really different. And we're very specific. So people ask, can you help sell the film and PR? I said, well, we can give you connections to people that do that because it's a separate niche, a separate job in a very specific field. This is very, focused upon very one aspect. People see it come together when they bring on those different people to then form a whole. There's a lot of people that go into that. A lot of different moving parts, you could say.
Oh, yeah.
I love it.
Layers and layers.
Layers.
Well, I got to ask you, tell me a little bit about Born to Do It.
Yes.
What it is, why you wrote it, why it's important, and who it's for.
So Born to Do It, I wrote during the pandemic. So obviously my schedule changed a lot when the pandemic happened. In fact, I almost got stuck in LA because it was the whole borders were closing, and then Trump said, "Oh no, the UK is fine; it's going to be open." He went, "Actually, no, I changed my mind. I'm going to close them." And we had to like get the last flight out before everything went downhill. And when I got back, within like a week of getting back, obviously my schedule was not traveling all the time. It was, the lockdown. And then I wrote for a magazine, like a depth interview about my journey from academia to the film industry and then running my own business. And she said, have you ever thought about writing your own book? This is a good interview, but like really developing on those points you pick out and pick up. And I said, no, I haven't. But maybe I could look in that now with you because I've got maybe some time to do it. And then I wanted to tell my story about how I found my soul purpose in terms of what I should be doing, my why, in a different way to what I expected, and then how to set up your first business, bringing in spiritual techniques and business practices that are standard. And it worked quite well because I kind of wrote itself, the book, quite quickly. And then we had an editor come in and change it, and that was really good. And
how was it getting feedback on what you wrote?
The tables have turned.
The tables have turned.
Yeah, I was just like dreading it at one point. And then she said, well, although it's not my, I wouldn't read this by choice, she said, I quite enjoyed parts of it and it actually just needed to be tightened up and not repeated. I was like, oh, okay, thank you.
I don't know how to take
that. It's like, okay. But I mean, with the notes, they were pretty much just tweaking things here and there. It wasn't anything like a rewrite. But because I knew before I wrote it, I was like, it wrote itself, so it felt like it was flowing and it wasn't like too much of the same thing. Every chapter was organized in terms of, bringing in vision boards and bringing in KPIs, the things you need, and then in the right structure, and bringing on my own personal experiences. And I bring that into the book, and that helps people relate and then, have their own kind of journey. So I wasn't intending to write a book during the pandemic, but I did. And it got some really good press. It was in Forbes. It's now available to buy in Walmart. So I have made it.
Wow.
And apparently Walmart are now going to deliver stuff via drones. Thought maybe my book will be in there.
Let's go.
Oh, that's amazing.
Born to do it by drone. Look at this.
I was just
Love it.
wow. The publisher told me after a while, she said, oh, we're now in Walmart. I was like, when was this? She went, oh, the first week of Jan this year. And I was like, oh, great.
Let's go.
So yeah, let's go. So it has a nice little life. And people tend to buy it who just it helps filmmakers too just get more clarity on what they're doing with their careers, and if it is for them, how to pursue it further, and also to bring in the right techniques, to ease stress and anxiety, and to form a good production company. So it does work with all kinds of industries, not just film, and not just any kind of business sector, but anything really. So it goes really well. So yeah, I'm really proud of it. When I wrote it, I was really happy with it. And then I was going to do a book tour, but then obviously the pandemic was still going, and then I moved, and then I didn't get time. So I just did a little virtual thing at one point, and then it just has its own life. And Walmart, Amazon.
Yeah, so you can get it at Walmart.
Yeah.
You might be able to. So Joey, watch. You might have a drone flying over your house.
Yeah.
You might be
Say,
dropping a book off.
Might not be
pretty
my
soon.
drone either.
And you're in the backyard. That's right. That's awesome.
That's awesome. Well, we got 3 questions we like to ask each guest before we get them out of here. I want to ask though, make sure I pay my respects to the book because I know it's a massive undertaking to write a book.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would like to share about the book before we get into our final 3 questions?
I would say if you take away anything from it, the key thing to remember is to never give up. Never give up on your dreams is the key thing that my business coach always taught me. When the going got tough, when I was moving from Wales to London, and then obviously doing bigger leaps, people weren't always convinced it would work, and I kind of knew it would, but I didn't want any negativity. So I thought, no, not going to give up. If I give up, then I'm not going to know what's going to happen. So I'm going to keep on going and just keep moving forward. So if it feels right, to keep doing it.
Love that. If you give up, they were right, and you failed, and because you didn't, here you are. We love that.
Exactly.
Well, our final 3 questions. If you could go back in time in your career and change one thing, what's something that you would do differently?
I would have, from the get-go, when I first started up my company, when I had my logo and website, I wished I would have hired a business coach to talk me through managing the business and putting infrastructure in place. I learned on the job and ad hoc and all over the place. It wasn't the most, seamless and very linear, but a business coach came in later than what it should in my stage. In the beginning, it would have been different. So anybody going to start a business up, hire a really good business coach, talk you through what to do and how to set up your funnels and systems in place, because you will love them forever by doing that.
Love that.
Solid advice.
So good. What is one piece of advice? The question is normally that you can give to filmmakers trying to grow in their craft or their business. But what is one piece of advice that you can give to filmmakers trying to get their film, trying to make their film successful in the film festival circuit?
Okay. The first thing is to get objective feedback and ask the question, have I got a film that festivals will want? And if so, what kinds of festivals? And ask for the feedback to be honest and helpful and constructive. That's the key thing. It really is the key thing. If you don't know what you've made, you won't know where to place it. You won't know where to get the exposure and success.
So good. So good.
Another mic drop moment
I
right
know,
there, ladies and gentlemen.
So apart from Quentin Tarantino, who is one filmmaker that has inspired you or your work?
I really like the work of Sofia Coppola. I think she's very interesting, and how she made The Virgin Suicides was so dreamy. And the cinematography, the music, everything about it. And I like her when she's interviewed. She's very inspiring, as is Catherine Bigelow. So those two, I'm like, they're interesting. So Tarantino's obviously number one, but I was like strong female directors. And she's definitely, those two are definitely up there.
I love it. I love getting a new answer to that question.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anyone else has said those answers on the show, so
No.
that's awesome.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for coming in the studio today. I always love when our guests are live and in person and not virtual. So thank you for joining us in the incredible country of Dallas, Texas. And excited to really dive into your book more and to follow you, and honestly, probably utilize your services for our films and festivals to come. And so just thank you for what you're doing and being a resource to filmmakers to be successful and to see other people win. We love to hear that.
Thank you. It's been great. I've had so much fun.
For people that want to get connected with you or potentially get objective feedback on their films so that it can succeed in the film festival circuit, what's the best place for them to get in touch with you?
My website is a good start, which is the filmfestivaldoctor.com. That explains more about me, how we can help you. Has a blog on there, a little e-shop with some free ebooks you can get you started to see if you want to go venture in that world. And it also has some press that I've achieved for my brand and interviews with me. And also Instagram. Best one is at Rebekah Film Doctor. And if you slide into my DMs, I'll respond.
I love it. Just slide into those DMs.
That's awesome. And for you that are listening on the audio version of this podcast, we will include the links in the description on both YouTube and wherever you get your podcast.
Yep. Rebekah, thanks again for joining us today on the Rough Cut Club. For those of you tuning in, thank you for joining us on this entire episode and for us kicking off season 2. We're deep in the heart of it now and excited that you guys are still here and still rocking with us. So join us for the next episode. We'll see you next time on the Rough Cut Club.
Thank you.